subscribed for all the latest updates. The words weren't screamed in a fight. They were whispered like a wish. The cordless phone was warm against Evelyn Sanders's ear, the hum of her refrigerator filling the silence while she waited for her daughter to answer. Thursday nights were ritual. Call Brooke, hear her voice, pretend things were fine. Brooke picked up on the third ring. Yeah, what now? No hello, no warmth, just irritation sharpened into a blade. Evelyn softened her voice. Hi, sweetheart, just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a few days. In the background, faint clinking glass, a muffled laugh. Then Brooke's sigh, long and theatrical. I'm in the middle of something, Mom. Can this wait? Evelyn shifted the phone to her other hand, steadying her tone. It won't take long. You mentioned tuition coming up again. I thought maybe I could help cover. Oh my God, Brooke interrupted. You always assume I can't handle anything myself. The words hit harder than Evelyn expected. Her gaze drifted to the mantel, where a photograph of a gap-toothed 8-year-old Brooke beamed in a ballerina costume, arms around her father. That little girl had been affectionate, eager, gentle. Now, Evelyn barely recognized the voice on the line. I didn't mean it that way, Evelyn said carefully. I just want to make sure you're okay. There was a pause. Brooke's voice dropped, muffled as if she'd turned away from the receiver. It's her again, Brooke muttered. Very weak, like clockwork. She acts like she's checking in, but it's just control, like I owe her. Evelyn's stomach tightened. A deeper voice answered in the background, male, indistinct. Then Brooke's reply, softer, colder, meant for someone else. She just needs to die already. The words weren't screamed in a fight. They were whispered like a wish. Evelyn didn't move, didn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt around her. Her hand found the small button on the phone base, record, a feature her lawyer had once insisted she install for business purposes. Tonight, it became something else entirely. Brooke's tone flipped back, suddenly sugar-sweet. So, Mom, anyway, are you going to send the money or what? Evelyn's voice came out steadier than she felt. I think I'll need to look into a few things first. A scoff. Whatever. The line went dead. She stood there in her kitchen, phone still in her hand, listening to the ordinary noises of her house, the whir of the air conditioning, the faint tick of the clock on the wall. Ordinary, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. Slowly, she set the phone down, turned off the stove, and walked to her office. The brass lamp on her desk cast a warm glow across the papers she hadn't touched in months. Mortgage files, investment statements, her late husband's meticulously labeled folders. At the bottom sat one labeled in her own handwriting. Brooke, Trust Fund. She pulled it out. The papers inside told a story she hadn't questioned. Wire transfers, tuition checks, allowances, emergencies. Each line a thread she thought tied them together. But tonight, staring at her daughter's name printed over and over, it didn't look like love anymore. It looked like leverage. Evelyn pressed her palms against the desk, bowing her head. For years, she had convinced herself that sacrifice equaled closeness, that if she kept giving, Brooke would keep needing her, maybe even loving her. But tonight had carved that illusion open. Her daughter didn't want help. She wanted her gone. Evelyn reached for a blank folder, slipped the phone's recording chip inside, and wrote one word on the tab in bold ink: receipts. She set it down like a loaded gun. Evelyn doesn't hang up. She records the call instead. If love is measured by money, then I'd been bankrupt for years. Evelyn woke before dawn, the kind of restless morning refuses to hush. She padded barefoot into her office, switched on the brass lamp, and stared at the folder she'd labeled the night before. Receipts. For years, she had told herself it was just what mothers did. Tuition here, rent there, the occasional emergency check when Brooke swore the bursar's office or landlord was breathing down her neck. But with the recording from last night replaying in her head, the tidy ledger no longer looked like love. It looked like rot. She called her financial advisor, Paul Henderson, at 9 o'clock sharp. He'd been with her since Richard's death, a steady voice in her widowhood. "Evelyn," he said warmly, though she could hear the hesitation beneath. "What's going on?" "I need a full audit," she said. "Every transfer to Brooke, every line. Don't smooth it over for me." Paul was silent a moment. "You're sure?" "I'm done pretending I don't need the truth." 2 days later, Paul's packet arrived. Evelyn spread the pages across her dining table like an autopsy report. At first, the numbers blurred. Tuition checks, yes, but scattered among them were withdrawals that had nothing to do with school. Neiman Marcus, $4,875. Ritz-Carlton, Miami, $2,240. Gucci, $3,600. Evelyn traced the figures with her finger, the disbelief hitting like cold water. These weren't mistakes. They were patterns. The deeper she read, the sicker she felt. Brooke hadn't even been enrolled this semester. Evelyn confirmed it herself by calling the registrar her daughter had lied again and again, pocketing the money while spinning fairy tales about exams and professors. Evelyn pressed her hand to her chest. Oh, Brooke. That night, she dug out old photo albums, trying to remind herself of the child she'd raised. Brooke at 6, with frosting on her nose at her birthday party. Brooke at 12, clutching a spelling bee trophy. Brooke at 16, weeping when Richard's casket was lowered into the ground. Where had that girl gone? At what point had compassion turned to contempt? Evelyn flipped another page, but the images felt like strangers. She closed the album and shoved it aside. Her phone buzzed on the table. "Brooke, need $5K by Monday. Tuition due. Wire it ASAP. No please. No thank you. Not even punctuation. Just a demand." Evelyn stared at the message until the screen dimmed. The old Evelyn would have wired the money instantly, hoping to buy a fragment of affection. But tonight, she typed slowly, deliberately, "Evelyn, let's meet in person." The reply came fast. "Brooke, fine, brunch, that place you like." Evelyn set the phone down, her pulse steady. Brooke hadn't even bothered to suggest a location. She simply assumed Evelyn would pay, like always. But tomorrow, Evelyn thought grimly, the bill would come due, just not in the way her daughter expected. She gathered the statements into a binder, slipped the recording chip from the phone into an envelope, and placed them all neatly in her office safe. She labeled the key in block letters, "Truth." Then she stood at the window, looking out at her rose garden, the petals glowing pale in the moonlight. For years she had fed those roses faithfully, pruning and watering, believing care guaranteed beauty. But sometimes, no matter how much you gave, the thorns grew sharper than the bloom. Tomorrow, she thought, the pruning begins. Evelyn replies, "Let's meet in person." She walked Sid in wearing a $2,000 handbag and a face that said I owed her the world. The brunch spot was one of those polished places with exposed brick walls, Edison bulbs, and overpriced mimosas. Evelyn arrived 10 minutes early, binder tucked neatly in her leather tote, stomach heavy with both coffee and dread. She'd chosen a corner table with a clear view of the door. When Brooke walked in, the room seemed to tilt. She was was dazzling in a calculated way. Hair blown out, sunglasses perched high, a pale silk blouse tucked into designer jeans. On her shoulder hung a gleaming Louis Vuitton bag Evelyn now recognized from the audit. The bag alone cost more than Evelyn's first car. "Mom!" Brooke cooed, her voice sweet as syrup. She leaned down and kissed the air beside Evelyn's cheek. "You look so cute today." Evelyn studied her daughter's face. Too bright, too wide, affection painted on like foundation. They sat. A waiter appeared, and Brooke ordered a mimosa before Evelyn even opened her menu. "So," Brooke said, folding her hands under her chin, "you wanted to meet. I'm assuming this is about the tuition." Evelyn inhaled, slow. "It's about more than tuition." She reached into her tote and pulled out the binder, sliding it across the table. The weight of it landed like a gavel. Brooke blinked, then forced a laugh. "What's this?" "Receipts," Evelyn said. "Every transfer, every charge, every lie." Brooke flipped the cover, scanned the first page, then slammed it shut. "Seriously? You went through my accounts?" "They were my accounts," Evelyn corrected softly, "and I had to see the truth." Brooke leaned back, mimosa arriving just in time for her to take a defiant sip. "God, you're dramatic." Evelyn didn't flinch. "You told me you were enrolled this semester. You weren't. You told me the $5,000 was for tuition. It wasn't. Hotels, handbags, designer shoes." "So what?" Brooke snapped. "You're old. What else are you going to do with the money? Let it sit there until you die. At least I'm enjoying it." The words were delivered with a smirk, but Evelyn heard the echoes of last night's recording. She just needs to die already. She swallowed hard. "Brooke," Evelyn said, voice low, "do you hear yourself? I raised you to be grateful, to be kind. What happened to you?" Brooke's eyes hardened. "You raised me to need you, to be dependent on you. You controlled every part of my life, and now you're mad because I'm taking what's mine without groveling." "What's yours?" Evelyn repeated. Brooke gestured at the binder. "All of it. Dad would have wanted me taken care of. You know it." Evelyn reached into the binder and pulled out one more document, the trust fund amendment her late husband had drafted before his death. One Brooke never knew about. She slid it across. "This trust ends today." Brooke's hand froze halfway to her glass. "You're bluffing." "I'm not." Brooke snatched the paper, eyes darting over the lines. Her face drained, then twisted. "You can't do this." "I already have." For a moment, the table was silent except for the clinking of cutlery from nearby diners. Then Brooke leaned forward, her voice a hiss. "You'll regret this. Don't think I won't fight back." Evelyn met her stare, steady as stone. "Then fight, but you won't win." Brooke shoved her chair back, the legs screeching against the hardwood. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't look back. The waiter approached timidly with the bill. Evelyn pulled a crisp 20 from her wallet, left it on the table, and rose with a calm she didn't quite feel. As she walked out into the warm Nashville sun, she whispered to herself, "No more." Brooke hisses, "You'll regret this. Don't think I won't fight back." Entitlement isn't just ugly, it's dangerous when it's desperate. The papers came on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a man in a suit who wouldn't meet Evelyn's eyes. He asked her to sign for them, and when she closed the door, her hands were trembling before she even tore open the envelopes. Loeb, petition for civil action. Brooke Sanders for Evelyn Sanders. The words swam before her. Brooke was suing her. The allegations felt like daggers: breach of trust, verbal contract violations. Emo, Brooke claimed Evelyn had promised lifelong support, that she had verbally committed to paying not just for school, but for living expenses, as long as necessary. Attached were transcripts of conversations, grainy phone recordings where Evelyn's own voice said things like, "Of course I'll always take care of you, honey," and "Don't worry, I'll make sure you never go without." Weaponized love, bent into evidence. That afternoon, she sat across from her attorney, Michael Langford, a silver-haired bulldog of a man who had guided her through Richard's estate years earlier. "She recorded me," Evelyn whispered. She was saving those words for this. Michael leaned back, fingers steepled. Judges don't love verbal promises, but they don't ignore them either. If the court believes you intended to provide indefinitely, she could make a case. "But it wasn't a contract," Evelyn said firmly. "It was me being a mother." Michael sighed, which can look like consent when written down. Evelyn pressed her palms together. "So what do I do?" "We fight, and we fight smart. First, I'll need every document you have on her spending habits. Proof of misuse. We show the court she defrauded you, not the other way around." That night, Evelyn pulled the binder back onto her dining table. Every charge, every receipt, every indulgence that had drained her dry. She sorted them into piles, labeling each with sticky notes: tuition, fraud, luxury, lies. She worked until midnight, her glasses slipping down her nose, her heart a steady drumbeat of grief and resolve. When she was done, she opened a fresh leather-bound journal, one Richard had given her for Christmas years ago, still blank. On the first page, she wrote, "Timeline of manipulation," and she began to document it all. Every time Brooke had cried for money, every fabricated deadline, every guilt trip disguised as need. The following morning, Elin went to her safe. She pulled out the original trust document Richard had drafted. Her fingers shook as she opened it, though not from fear this time. She hadn't looked at it in years, but there it was. Richard's careful penmanship, the clauses written in legalese she remembered only vaguely. And then her eyes caught it, buried 3 pages in, a secret clause. Richard had anticipated what Evelyn never could, a condition that allowed Evelyn, as trustee, to terminate Brooke's access if she engaged in fraud, deception, or gross misuse of funds. Evelyn's throat tightened. Richard had known. Not about this exact moment, maybe, but he had known their daughter's entitlement could one day swallow her whole, and he had left Evelyn the knife to cut the cord. That evening, Brooke called. Her voice was sickly sweet. "You got the papers, I assume. Nothing personal, Mom. Just business." Evelyn held the trust in her hand, her thumb resting on Richard's signature. "Then here's my business, Brooke," she said, her tone like ice. "Your father left you nothing unconditional, and now I know why." There was a pause, a sharp intake of breath. Then Brooke's voice cracked into venom. "You think you've won? You haven't even begun to lose." The line went dead. Evelyn sat back, the trust clutched to her chest. Her daughter had declared war, but she wasn't walking into this battle unarmed. Evelyn opens the safe and pulls out the original trust document, unedited. I raised her to speak her mind, not to weaponize my love. The courthouse smelled of old wood and new fear. Evelyn sat at her attorney's side, the trust documents spread neatly before them, while across the aisle Brooke lounged with her own lawyer, tapping away at her phone as if she were waiting for brunch instead of a hearing. Michael leaned close. "Remember, we're not here to settle everything today. We're here to set the stage. Evelyn nodded, though her stomach twisted. She caught Brooke's glance, smug, sharp, daring. The girl she once cradled in her arms was gone. In her place sat a woman who looked at her motherly